Hello and welcome to Rendering Forms lesson. In this video we are going to take a look at new and safe controllers, UI data provider for a form, and form UI component configuration. First, let's create a data provider for our form. I will create an namespace called UI under module root directory and create data provider inside. Here we are creating a class named data provider that extends Magento UI data provider abstract data provider. For the constructor, we are requiring name, primary field name, request field name, collection factory for own use, meta, and data. Most of these params will be passed to parent constructor, and all those fields will be specified in form UI component configuration. We are implementing only one method here, which is getData. And in this method, we basically getting items from the collection and reordering them to be under general key in the result, to render all items data fields in general field set of our form. Now let's create controllers that we'll be using for rendering the form and saving an item. So I go to controller admin HTML and I'm going to create the item controller folder here. And under item folder I will create first controller, which is new action. As the new word is reserved by PHP, we have to call the controller differently. The new action controller is pretty simple. It just returns the result of type page. All other things will be handled by layout and UI component. The second controller we will need is save. Save controller requires item factory for a constructor, and in execute function it creates an item, sets data which it gets from request post value under general key, that is basically data from general field set, and it saves the item. Then it creates a redirect using result redirect factory create and redirecting the application to mastering index URL, which is URL of our grid. Now we can create a layout for the new action. We go to view, admin HTML, layout folder, and we create file named mastering item new. Of type HTML, of type XML, sorry. This file is pretty much like the layout that we created for grid. However, the UI component that we add into content is now mastering item form. And I would like to pay your attention to the layout attribute of page node that I used. Now it's not one column, but admin 2 columns left, base layout from Magento framework. This layout will add additional elements to a page and will make us able to render the form in 2 columns. The left column will be tabs for a form and the right column will be content. Now we can create mastering item form UI component. and I go to UI component directory, and we'll create this file, mastering item form .xml. So this file is providing the configuration for UI component, and the JS config nodes is specifying the data provider, which is mastering item form namespace, and mastering item form data source is the name of data provider that we'll use, that we'll declare later, and the dependency is the same. The label of form is general, and the form is using layout of tabs, rendering tabs at the left. Also, I added one button, and it's Save button. The data source name is mastering item form data source. We are using the class that we created as a class of data provider, specifying the name of data provider, the primary field name that should match item primary field in database, and request field name. I would like to use the same ID. Here is the collection factory that we are passing to constructor of our data provider, and this is collection factory for our item. Finally, submit URL, which is mastering item save, pointing to our save controller. And this form has just one field set named general with the same label, and two fields. The first one is name with the label name, type text, form element input. Also, as name is required for our item, we have to add validation, saying that this field is required. So required entry true. And description with the same configuration as a name, however without validation, because it's not required. Now, one additional thing I would like to do is to add a button to the grid that we created earlier. I go to UI component mastering items grid.xml, and I would like to add a node to argument name data. Basically, I can just copy the button's declaration from the form, because all UI components configuration is similar. So I am adding item name buttons, and the button name I would like to use is add. The label is add item. The class for CSS is primary, and URL will be mastering. We can use star because this page is rendered on the same URL. And item / new. That's it. Now let's test the form on the front end. First, I would like to clean cache. Now I will open a browser and go to admin panel and open the grid. As you can see, now grid has add item button, and we can use this button to open our form. Here's our form rendered. As we can see, only name field is required. And I will try to create a new item. New item created from UI form. Let's save it. So we are redirected back to the grid and we have this item in a list. That's great. In the next video, I will tell how to create custom UI component. So we'll be able to introduce the new type of UI component to Magento 2 framework. See you later.